Coming up, August 2022 was month 20 of Brexit, and we saw brand new stories of Brexit hell on an almost daily basis. Time to move on, they say. How can we, when every day brings fresh news of British companies struggling with Brexit red tape, or a chronic shortage of workers in the economy, or a brain drain from the UK science community, or a post-Brexit cost of living crisis that is worse than any other large economy? I'll be giving you my monthly Brexit roundup in this video before welcoming my special guest today, Alex from Political X, to chat about current Brexit developments. Stay tuned. If you enjoy watching my videos, please give this one a like and spread the word by sharing a link on your favoured social media platforms. If you subscribe, you can also hit the bell icon to be notified of each new video I release. So before we welcome Political X, let's take a look at the latest Brexit pain from the month of August 2022. 1st of August saw reports of a Dorset cattle breeder losing £150,000 due to Brexit and the government's failure to set up border control posts to process livestock entering the EU. It seems the business may be forced to abandon any future attempts to export due to Brexit changes at seaports. This story was also picked up by the BBC a couple of days later. And on the 3rd of August, another farming-related Brexit issue, as Scottish salmon was reportedly left to rot in lorries, according to this article in Scottish newspaper The National. The 4th of August saw two major Brexit stories breaking. First was a study carried out by logistics company DHL, which reported that nearly 3/4, 72%, of small and medium-sized UK businesses who export say that Brexit has increased their costs of doing business. This article from the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport reports of the ongoing post-Brexit challenges faced by these companies, which of course feeds into the shocking fall in the UK's global exports since Brexit. Also on the 4th of August, the journal Nature carried a series of stories from 4 international researchers who were forced to abandon their research and their careers in the UK as Brexit led to the European Research Council withdrawing their grants unless they relocated to an EU country. This was a direct consequence of the petty, nationalistic government here in the UK not bothering to ratify an agreement with Horizon Europe, the EU's research funding programme. Much like the Erasmus programme, which allowed British students to study at European universities, Brexit didn't have to mean leaving Horizon either. That was more a result of those people negotiating the withdrawal agreement, each trying to out-UKIP each other in a pathetic display of being the most anti-European. The 5th of August brought yet another story of the horrendous impact of Brexit on the farming sector, with a large organic Lincolnshire farm business struggling to find workers. The company's director, Vernon Reid, said, "Brexit has made sourcing appropriate labour more difficult, and we've never been able to source sufficient labour from those living in the UK." 7th of August, Sky News reported on the music industry and how Brexit has led to a 45% collapse in the number of UK artists booked at European music festivals, as Sir Elton John warned that smaller music acts are risking being stranded at Dover due to Brexit red tape. Project Fear has become project reality for the music industry. 8th of August, Euronews reported that Britain's lives in Portugal are being paralysed by the failure of the post-Brexit ID cards rollout. Thousands of Brits living in Portugal are being deprived of access to basic rights such as healthcare, employment and social security because they've not been issued with post-Brexit residency cards. They've also been unable to bring third country spouses into Portugal, including their British wives and husbands. It looks like the blame lies with understaffing and other issues within the Portuguese immigration department. But the point is, this suffering is only happening because of Brexit. A decision that a lot of those Brits living in Portugal long term had no say in whatsoever, being excluded from the advisory referendum. 9th of August. Just as a reminder that Northern Ireland's special status, not having a hard border with the EU, does not mean everything is hunky-dory post-Brexit. This article on Belfast Live talks about how hold-ups are hitting baggage delivery services, where travellers send luggage ahead to avoid airport queues, but then arrive at their destination to find that their baggage has been delayed several hours by EU customs checks and Brexit red tape, or even worse, subjected to customs charges. Baggage delivery specialist sendmybag.com are quoted as saying, Brexit-related delays continue to affect UK-EU logistics networks, and until further notice, holiday baggage shipments between the UK and Europe should not be booked. 11th of August, and the latest farming-related issue arises, with STV in Scotland reporting a huge financial hit to Scottish farmers exporting seed potatoes to the EU and even to Northern Ireland. Why? Because there is no trade deal allowing these seed potatoes to be sent to the EU. By contrast, because of Jacob Rees-Mogg's policy that import controls would be an act of self-harm in his words, and that free trade is hugely advantageous, EU seed potatoes are still freely entering the UK without checks, undermining the British seed potato industry, mainly based in Scotland, while Brexit has at the same time removed their main export market at a stroke. 12th of August and pharmaceuticaltechnology.com report on Brexit fallout affecting batch testing of imported medicines. Among the negative effects that they mention are supply chain disruptions, skill shortages, issues around market authorization, and added costs for pharmaceutical chief medical officers. They quote a 2021 global data survey which found that Brexit is expected to have a worse impact on the UK's healthcare sector than the COVID-19 pandemic. 15th of August, the day that arch-Brexiteer Michael Gove got stuck in a 30-hour delay at an airport caused by Brexit-related travel chaos. The London Economic reported that his flight was delayed by over a day because of a lack of staff due to the pandemic, compounded by Brexit. Here's fellow passenger Candida Jones tearing him a new one about how he was responsible through Brexit for diminishing her daughter's life opportunities. And Candida, if you're watching, I'd love to have you on the channel. On this same day, turning to a familiar theme ever since Brexit, The Guardian quotes the National Farmers Union, the NFU, as claiming that up to £60 million worth of UK crops are currently being left to rot in the fields owing to the continuing lack of workers. Tom Bradshaw of the NFU said, "It's nothing short of a travesty that quality, nutritious food is being wasted at a time when families across the country are already struggling to make ends meet because of soaring living costs." 16th of August, and Channel I report on a study that found Brexit is having a negative impact on business, according to almost half of UK IT leaders. More than 14% of IT managers said the impact of the UK leaving the EU was negative, with 33% judging it to be somewhat negative. Only 3% viewed Brexit as positive, and 6% thought it was somewhat positive. The main problems caused by Brexit were supply chain issues, recruitment difficulties, and a loss of European customers through higher costs and increased paperwork. 18th of August, the Irish Times carried an article featuring former Bank of England policymaker Adam Posen, insisting that 80% of UK inflation is due to leaving the EU, and is the reason why the UK has the highest inflation of any G7 country. 19th of August, and on a similar theme, the I newspaper reports on what it calls the cost of leaving crisis, following the post-Brexit exodus of EU workers. In social care alone, there are 160,000 vacancies. In the NHS, there are 110,000 vacancies. The shortages are so bad that government ministers are looking at using immigrant workers for the NHS and social care on a mass scale, with heavy recruitment campaigns in both India and in the Philippines. All the xenophobes and bigots who voted for Brexit will be delighted with that plan, I'm sure. 23rd of August. The Washington Post reported on how the EU has blocked access to billions of pounds of science funding for Britain in retaliation for Britain's ludicrous and ill-thought-out plan to rip up parts of the trade arrangement for Northern Ireland. It's really interesting to get this view from America, with the Washington Post commenting that the timing should tell you everything, as a quarrel with Brussels is a tried and tested way of appealing to Tory voters. They go on to say that, as with the entire Brexit debacle, the dispute perfectly captures how the UK's hardline approach quickly hits the wall of economic and political reality. In this case, Britain's scientists and researchers will risk losing access to the largest science funding programme of its kind anywhere in the world, a near $100 billion pot called Horizon. We're now up to the 30th of August, and that's the day I welcome special guest Alex from YouTube channel Political X. Alex, before we turn to the big Brexit news of today, what can you tell us about your history and why you started Political X?
Because I'm a historian, there you go, that's already an interesting segue into who I am and what I do. Yeah. As an historian, I started off being really angry over the Russia report and the lack of media integrity and interest and investigation into what had happened. And I'd listened to Boris Johnson say there was no interference. And on top of that, the government couldn't be bothered to investigate and no one wanted to take responsibility. And I went, that's sackable. In the past, there you go, the history link, in the past, you would have been sacked for that because that would have been easily seen as a form of treason. And yet, nothing's happened to him. He was allowed to stay on and the media just brushed it aside. So I started reporting on that. I built up a YouTube channel. The first one was on Russian interference. And from there on, I decided and realized that YouTube could be a way forward. It's also a way of me doing my teaching to a bigger audience. And as a result, that's how I got Political X up and running.
So the big Brexit story of today, 30th of August, Alex, is the dramatic intervention by Lord Alan Sugar, with this article in the Metro telling us that Lord Sugar demands Boris Johnson and Michael Gove go to jail. What did you make of that?
Yeah, he's come out and he said that Gove and Boris need to be sent to jail for their crimes of lying about Brexit and everything else. In 2016, he came out on the BBC, Lord Sugar, and said, actually, for Brexit, I could have gone either way with it. You know, he's got a national pride about him, and he's also got that element of looking at the bigger picture, looking at the economic damage, and obviously he's a man associated with money and finance. He would be able to look at both sides, and obviously it looks like he voted for staying inside the EU. So it's really interesting to see that he's come out and said all of these things, and now he's literally throwing Boris under the bus. Because CNN have come out and followed up on this, and so MSN on this story, and it's a bit like, is MSN and CNN, they're American news journal stations. So for both of them to come out and start reporting on this seems pretty big. Even the Daily Mail, I think, have written an article.
So Alan Sugar was made a Lord by Gordon Brown, and he was a Labour Party member right up until Jeremy Corbyn's leadership. He then switched to supporting the Tories under Theresa May and under Boris Johnson. He was basically a Boris backer.
I mean, it shows that Lord Sugar probably was on the middle of it all. I mean, he's obviously got influence with 5.5 million Twitter followers. It shows that the tide's turning. And if you've got someone who's going to be as big with the financial clout of Lord Sugar, who will probably throw millions into a campaign, hint, hint, wink, wink towards the rejoin EU party if you're watching Lord Sugar.
So you think that as someone who's had a foot in both camps, you see Alan Sugar as a kind of bellwether?
I mean, that's a huge thing. It's a bit of publicity. It'll put more pressure on the Tory government. And Lord Sugar, as you said, he's a weather vane. As soon as you start having heavyweights come out who were weather vaning or actually they were pro-Brexit and they're flipping now, it's interesting. It's a bit nuanced because Lord Sugar is obviously, he voted to stay in the EU, but he clearly came out and backed Boris. And now he wants to get Boris gone.
Before I let you go, one of the biggest political stenches in August came from the sewage scandal. What's your take on it?
That's hitting our tourism. And it's interesting as well because we've been called the sick man of Europe, Plague Island, and now Dirty Man of Europe. We need tourism. Like our tourist industry is about 130 billion a year. That's a massive industry. It's going to put people off. We literally have all this great weather at the moment. We could be selling our beaches, but we can't, because if you go to those beaches, you'll get sick.
So, another Brexit benefit?
Is there a tangible Brexit benefit that anyone can point to? Like, I saw Rees-Mogg get ripped apart by Julia Hart-Brewer. She's a staunch right-winger, and she tore him apart over the Brexit benefits, because even she was starting to go, I don't see it. What's the economy like in Plymouth? What are the shops like around where you are right now?
Well, twofold really. First, the rising energy prices are seeing independent bars, restaurants and takeaways closing. And secondly, every shop, hotel, bar and restaurant have help wanted signs in their window now that a massive tranche of seasonal and other workers are no longer in the UK. But wages don't seem to be increasing, and the rich seem to carry on regardless.
We've got this sort of conflation between the rich, posh Brexiteers and the working class Brexiteers. And their aims were completely different. The posh rich ones wanted it competitive. They want low wage, deregulation, which means scrapping workers' rights, scrapping environmental standards. It's almost like we've gone to war in terms of economic effect on the UK. And we've lost.
Thanks again so much for coming on today, Alex. And once again, please check out Alex's channel. That's Political X here on YouTube, with the strapline, Tory busting since the Russia report. I've put a link in the notes below this video, or just search for Political X on YouTube.
Thank you so much for having me on. We've got to do this again.
And at that point, Zoom summarily cut us off. But do check out the Political X channel here on YouTube. And that, by popular demand, was my second monthly roundup of Brexit Britain. Should this become a regular monthly video? Let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching.